Welcome back to Big Brave Business. I'm your host, Sarah K. Heater. Big Brave Business is a podcast where we challenge the status quo of traditional business practices. So if you're ready to challenge norms, rewrite the rules, and redefine what it means to lead with courage and integrity, then grab a notebook and let's dive in. Welcome back to the Big Brave Business Podcast. Ooh, this conversation has been a long time coming because my guest today and I met on Threads actually like 6 months ago, maybe. And we have been trying to get our busy, chaotic schedules together to get a podcast interview recorded. And I'm really excited to talk about this topic. So my guest today is Lindsay Hyatt. Lindsay is a longtime copywriter, marketing strategist, and former elementary teacher who spent 15 years in corporate before launching her business, Lindsay Hyatt Co. in 2021. She works closely with organizations and entrepreneurs to help them build uncopyable brands supported by messaging that cuts through the noise. She's also the host of Reprogramming with Lindsay Hyatt. I love a podcaster. And on her podcast, she's on a mission to shift perspectives and break away from the status quo. Welcome to the podcast, finally, Lindsay.
Yay! Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. It's about time. And I love how you said we met on Threads. It felt so much like a date, like we met on Threads. Like that's like our tell the grandkids.
Yeah, I mean, not to become a Threads player, but I do feel like, thank you, by the way, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, but if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, I feel like we say it a lot. I'm like, oh, I met this person on Threads. And just, I've said it before, but let this be your sign that there is a gold mine to discover on Threads. The algorithm is so trainable. It's so quickly adaptable. And it's such a great way to have genuine conversations with the people you really want to have conversations with. Huge endorsement. Listen, I'm not going to do a huge endorsement for a lot of things meta, but in this case, like
I always forget it's meta. I forget it's meta because like you said, it is so trainable and there's actually conversations to be had where you don't feel like you're in the void. It's so different and refreshing.
Yes. And to your kind of brand themes, it's a place where people have to be original and they can't just regurgitate this worked for someone, so I'm going to copy it. Although, of course, there are people who just literally copy and paste Threads. We're not talking about that. I mean that anybody who's genuinely on Threads to have conversations, which is most people, right? It's different. It's different than this. Let me tap into this aesthetic and let me try to trick the algorithm and beat the algorithm and hack the algorithm. Like I'm just going to post my thoughts and I'm going to engage with other people about their thoughts. And we can dive in to kind of bigger, braver conversations than on, I think, any other social media platform right now. Yeah. So I just love that.
I love that too. And it's exactly what you said. It's not so curated. And one of the things I got excited about as a writer is I used to love Twitter. God, 2010 era Twitter, that was my spot. And though Threads is really nothing like Twitter, in my opinion, it's like Instagram people who found their way over to this medium. I love that it is text-based and you have to challenge yourself a little bit to write something that is engaging enough for people to want to talk to you about. So that's why I love it.
Yeah, I do think somebody was asking the other day, a friend that I met at an event recently, and she said, I feel like when I go on Threads, I'm glad you love it, but when I go on Threads, it's just crickets. And I said, to be fair, I think it is hit or miss. Sometimes you really just don't know what's going to pop off and what's not going to. But I think if you're being genuine and you're showing up with authenticity, then it's going to build over time. And also the key, truly, in my opinion, to Threads is to interact on other people's. And the more that you engage on other people's posts, the more that you're going to start getting engagement on yours. It seems really, really receptive to figuring out what keywords you're engaging with the most. And then, of course, there's also hashtags, but you don't have to use a literal hashtag for the keyword element of it to work. It's really fun. And I have to say, I can't really compare it to Twitter because I never got into Twitter. So if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, see, but I'm not a Twitter person. Me neither. I wanted to so badly.
Those days are dead.
I never knew what to post. Like what thoughts of mine would people care about? And now this is a totally different era because obviously having a business and a podcast where the whole goal is to like think deeply and to dig into topics. I have a lot of thoughts. So that is a little bit easier to make sense. I think circa 2010, I was a college senior and I was sort of like, no one cares what I think about anything. So what would I post? And I see celebrities posting about what shoes they're going to buy or the recipe they're making. But just as a person, like no one cares. And this actually really does feed into the topic that we said we were going to talk about today, which you talk about all the time. You talk about kind of being critical or and I'll say critical from a critique lens, as far as not critical as necessarily like you're a hater, although sometimes, but I think that let's really interrogate what is happening and is it effective? Is it ethical? Could we do it better? Right? And especially when it comes to, I'll say online coaching, but it's not just about coaches. It's about how coaches teach people to do business. So no matter what kind of business you're in, what are you being taught? Does that sound like I'm
Yeah.
capturing your essence?
Yeah. Now look, if you do follow me on Threads, you may see that yes, I call out the coaching industry as a whole lot because I see so many red flags that some of them have started to fall away, thankfully, but I
Yeah.
do see that they're still out there. But it is a larger online business problem, I think. So, I
Mhm.
mean, there's other industries mixed in there, including my own copywriting. I entered the space at a time where things were probably at its highest in terms of a boom of anyone can do this, you can make six figures, you can do
Yeah.
all this. And it really sucked people in, including me, who I was like, I've been in marketing for 15 years. You can't fool me. And I got fooled. So that's why I think from my perspective, I'm like, if somebody who knows what they're doing and knows what you're trying to do with this messaging, I still got sucked into it. There's people out there who don't have that background and really don't know they're about to be had. And I just feel this need to talk about it.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I think is so important in the context of big brave business and having this conversation is that I'm always trying to link the bigger picture to, it's not about you, right? You're not the problem. And I think that's one of the things that like marketing will have you believe. You're not the problem for getting duped or falling for it, right?
Right.
Actually, capitalism is the problem because
Yeah.
the thing is, we're all so vulnerable because stuff is hard and it hurts. And we all want, we're eager for those promises and those quick fixes and the magic bullet solution or a miracle cure to the things that ail us, and including feeling broke or feeling like there's not enough or having envy of what someone else has or whatever that looks like, right?
Right.
And when someone with a really big platform, a really big audience, and a lot of advertising dollars can then put out in front of you that here's all these examples of people I've worked with who have achieved really mind-blowing results, it makes you think. And then they tell you, and I can teach you how to do this. It makes you
Mhm.
really think, especially because, and I want to speak specifically to the person listening to this, because if you're listening to this podcast, if you follow me at all, then you're probably a person who knows and believes that there is something that you have to offer, something that you have to say that does matter if only people would listen. So when somebody comes along and sells you an opportunity for that thing inside of you that you have to share, that's going to help it blow up and you're going to make so much money, then of course you fall for that,
Mhm.
right? Of
Yeah.
course you
Who
want
wouldn't?
that. Yeah.
Who wouldn't? Like you said, it's hard out there, whether we're talking about business or just the world at large. We all struggle to different degrees depending on where we were
Yeah.
privileged or not privileged to be born and so on. But there's a lot of struggle and people are like just trying to get by. So they see
Yeah.
something, they think, oh my gosh, this could help me, this could help my family, and they want to be a part of it. They want to have that success. Something that I've become very focused on is I even hate to use the word empower because it's so overly used now as a copywriter. I'm aware of these things, but really empower people to seek these answers from within. And it's the harder job. It is the harder job to not have a plan, not have someone tell you what to do, not to have a formula, but we'll be in this cycle over and over and over again until we can get comfortable with, I think I can figure this out. I think, yes, I should get support if I can afford it, if it makes sense, but also I'm good. I'm smart. And I am determined and I will figure this out. I don't need to someone to tell me and pay somebody to tell me like how to do this.
Think, and you talk about this a lot on your platform, paying someone for help is fine, but how much should you pay? Right? What's
Oh, yeah.
reasonable? And this is something that can be so hard to figure out how we personally feel about what our threshold is for what we should pay for something or shouldn't pay for something, or what anybody should or shouldn't pay for something. And I think part of the reason why this is hard is because all of us have fucked up relationships with money. Again, let's go back to all signs point to capitalism is the
Mhm.
problem, right? We all have some kind of fucked up relationship with money, wherever that started, whatever that looks like for you. There's lots of course, kind of themes or trends that are popular problems to have with money,
Mhm.
but your own money story is your own money story. And as we talk more about what's your relationship with money and how do you feel about money and how are you healing your relationship with money, that just kind of shines a spotlight on the fact that, well, I can't be trusted to be neutral about making money decisions. So when someone tells me how much something costs and I have a reaction to it, it's because I have an unhealthy relationship with money. So therefore, I can't just listen to my own intuition about what I should or
Mhm.
shouldn't spend on help. So how the hell am I supposed to know? And I hope that this is speaking directly to you if you're listening to this, because I personally have definitely felt this. And I think that whether you're super hyper aware of it or not, I think most people have felt some version of this before. And it's hard. And then you have marketing tactics and sales tactics that are telling you it has to hurt in order for you to be invested in making that purchase, or you have to have some skin in the game, right? Or if you wanted it badly enough, you would find a way to make that investment. There's all kinds of anecdotal stories about this person sold their car to go to a Tony Robbins event. This person gave up whatever so that they could invest in this coaching, to try to make you feel like if you're not willing to do those things, it's because you don't want it badly enough. And those people wanted it badly enough. And now look, there's some magic success story. So the reason why you're still hurting is because you haven't figured out how to make this purchase yet. And if you figure out how to make this purchase, if you could just figure out how to make this purchase, it could solve all your problems, which, like, spoiler alert, it absolutely will not solve all your problems.
Oh.
So I'm curious, like, for you personally, what has your experience been in assessing? And obviously, you sell services too, right? Like we both do. So, when it comes to pricing your own services and also deciding what you would invest in getting help, like how do you judge
Mhm.
that? How do you make that decision? And how's that evolved since you made that first big investment yourself?
Yeah, I think the only way to really know is to go through to go through it. In some cases, you kind of have to learn the lesson. And thankfully, I haven't invested so much where it ruined my life, but I did invest so much that I'm in serious debt still from it. This is just from last year. I'm an emotional person, so I react on emotion. So like you could talk to my husband, like I will convince that man that like this is the thing I have to do for my business because I truly believe it. Like I truly believe it. And this could be the case for the mastermind that I was in last year, which I adored and I loved and I still love the people from it. But when I invested at the beginning of the year, I was in amazing financial shape, but by the end of the year, it had been a very bad year. So because of that decision that I made, which I was not coerced into, I'm still dealing with it a whole year later. I think that some of it is just experience, and this is a big thing that I will tell anyone, and I don't care what level you're at in your business. If there is something like this weighing on you where you think, if I could just invest in this coaching program, I could just invest in this VA or whatever the thing is, but I don't know, and is it the right thing? You got to stop for a minute and take a step back, get offline, get off of your phone, get off of all the input that you just keep getting over and over and cut the noise out And generally, a day, 2 days, a week will give you some clarity and some peace about whatever the decision is that makes the most sense for you. Now, that's not to say that you make a decision that you don't end up regretting later. That's how you learn though. And I went through I'm in my 4th year of business now. I've learned a whole lot. And after my experience last year, and if you talked to me in January of 2023, I was a different person and my belief system was like, this is the year. This is the year I've done all the right things on paper. I've paid my dues. I'm showing up on the podcast. I'm in this awesome mastermind. But it still didn't stop me from being on the floor crying in December that I thought I would have to go back to corporate. So that whole experience has shaped me in ways that I will never ever go back. Like I'll never be able to go back, but I'm thankful for that. So I've spent this whole year in my business in a no spend year. And of course, I still get Adobe. I still things that you need. I bought some cords so I could do some presentations and bring my laptop, things like that. But I wanted to give myself this year, not only to financially recover, but to get back to myself and learn to trust my own intuition again and give myself that space to say, okay, what do I really need support with here? And I found for me personally, most of the time, I don't need a coach that maybe is 15 years younger than me telling me what to do with I forgot because I was in the space that I am an experienced professional that's been doing this for a long time. I don't need that kind of support. But it's so shiny and exciting. It's hard to resist, right? Excuse me, having a thing.
Take your time.
Forgot my cough drops. Bad move. Okay.
Doing okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that is I always say this. That's so interesting. I think that's what's interesting to me about that is that I agree about my own experience. I think I kind of also had to learn where my alignment is with investments and spending because I overinvested in something that honestly, like that money could have been spent very differently at the time. And also, I don't feel as much as it was a positive experience, I did not have a negative experience. Thankfully, some people definitely have. My experience was not negative. I just didn't get what I thought I would get out of it. And
Yes.
I say that because I can't even bring myself to say I didn't get ROI because that's not true. I actually got from the person I directly invested in coaching with, I got referrals from her that turned into clients who stayed with me for more than a year. I met my first ever team member who became one of my best friends. And we also started this podcast together initially.
Mhm.
And the coach that I hired herself became a client of mine for several months. Financially, did make that money back. And also, I mean, my business catapulted with the help of that team member, right? So, Amanda, I mean, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you can
Hey,
just call her
Amanda.
name. Like, Amanda, if you've been listening, thank you so much. Her Amanda and I mean, man, I can't even imagine what my life or my business would be without her in it, and I wouldn't have met her if it weren't for that. So it's
Mm.
literally impossible for me to say like it wasn't worth it, or I didn't get ROI, or I wish I hadn't done it. Definitely, that's not true. I do think I learned a lesson about how much I am and am not willing to invest in future coaching
Mhm.
opportunities. And I did also have the same exact knee jerk reaction that you did, which is afterwards, it was like, man, I'm spending so much time and money to listen to other people tell me what they think. And I can't hear my own intuition anymore. And I need to focus on investing in my stop investing in other people and invest in just listening to my own self because and I've said this on the show before but you already have everything you need inside of you so much more about what you want to do and how to do things and I've said this but I will repeat it until the cows come home which is the people that you need when you're starting are like people who can consult on the legal aspect of your business.
Mm.
That's important. right? That you don't know unless you're a
Yep.
lawyer. Like
Yep.
you don't know what the answers are.
Right.
And then, I mean, I guess a payment processor because you have to be able to make money to have a business. But that's
Yeah.
in the beginning, that's it. Otherwise, you literally can make up what you want to do, what you want to sell, and then just get people to pay you for it. And you
Yep.
can do it in a way that feels aligned to you without having to hire a coach, right?
Right. And it's not to say, I mean, everything you said was spot on for me too. I loved the mastermind I was in. I did get value from it. It wasn't the value I thought I would get, like maybe similar to what you said, like I have lifelong friends. I have had great opportunities from it, but I really signed up for that mastermind because I thought in my industry this will put me to A-list status because that's
Mm-hmm.
what I perceived from
Mm-hmm.
the other people who had been in this program. And that's not what happened for my business. And my business almost didn't make it through last year. So, in retrospect, would I have spent the thousands and thousands that I spent on it again? No, I don't regret the time in there or any of the, but that amount was what I came back to was like, that was probably never okay. Even if I'm like maybe not a millionaire, but if I was like really like upper echelon, just pulling in the revenue, maybe, but even then, my monthly payment was more than my mortgage. That's messed up, I think. And I think that that is a mindset that we have created in this online space as that's normal. And that's something that I am actually trying to break down because it's not normal. It's not normal. If you can do it, great. If that's your situation, I'm so thrilled for you. But the majority of people, middle class people, are not in the position to spend $2,000 a month for kind of just like a nice program. Like
Yep.
you could remodel a bathroom or something. I don't know.
Pay off credit card debt or travel
Yeah.
around the world or I
Oh.
mean pay for your kids tuition or
Mm.
like literally any number of things that are arguably more important. And
Tangible.
and no shade to anyone who offers masterminds or coaching, right? I think
No.
this is, well, I guess it depends on what the context is of your
Yeah.
mastermind or your coaching. We might be shading. It just depends. But
Some people do deserve to be shaded. I'm sorry.
I mean, but just inherently, I said after my experience with what I invested in, my big ticket investment, my biggest ticket investment. I guess I've invested in a few like larger courses, but my biggest business investment was a one-on-one coach. And I said afterwards that the next time I make a big investment like that, it will be in a mastermind. And what's funny is then masterminds have become so trendy that
Mhm.
I can't tell what the container is actually going to look like and what I'm actually going to get from it before I would have to make that investment. So therefore, I haven't. I'm
Mhm.
interested in that experience. And you know what I found that's a hell of a lot more affordable that gives you a very similar experience. And I know you're on this too, is in person networking. Honestly, so I have mentioned this before, but I joined the National Association of Women Business Owners chapter in Phoenix in the spring. And I attend events roughly once a month. And then I've made really fast connections. So I get a lot of opportunities to spend time with the women from that group throughout. Now, I do have opinions, largely thanks to this podcast, about gendered spaces and having feelings
Mhm.
about that. But I will say the people who I have met in this group, they have wildly successful businesses, all kinds of different businesses locally, right? Some of them physical locations, some of them do stuff online, but none of them are going on Instagram and spending five figures on a coach or a course. So I that kind of helps me have the social proof that I don't need to either. And also anything I would hope to get out of the relationships that I would build in a mastermind, I can build there. And I think the lowest tier membership is $39 a month.
Oh, that's nice.
I
That's
mean,
nice.
you guys.
That's what I mean. And your mind is blown from that. Whereas a few years ago before I entered online business world, I'd been like $39 a month's kind of a lot. But now I'm
Yes,
like, that's a bargain.
$39 a month is not nothing, right? It's not
Yeah.
nothing, but
Yeah.
compared to more than your mortgage, right?
Mhm.
It's completely different. It's
Yeah.
completely different.
And look, that's my other push for this year is when I started my business, I had no real intention of I'm going to build an online business. No, I had a network and that's where I started. That's where I got my first clients were referrals. My existing real life network is what got my business started and kept it going the
Same.
first year. And that is a piece that is just kind of disregarded in the online space. And I think a lot of it is because many of the people who start online businesses don't haven't really invested in that side of it to begin with. And it's also scary if you're somebody who's an introvert or a homebody and you're working mostly alone at home. It's very intimidating to think like I'm going to go to a networking event. I got to put pants on. What? But the ability, the opportunity to make relationships in real life is usually easier and people want to know you and it's way
Yeah.
easier to build trust, right? And long term. So that's what I'm pushing people towards this year. It's the harder thing to do, but it's so worth it in the long run.
I think there's so many reasons, and I'm glad that you brought that up, and we can tap into that a little bit because let's call out the reasons why you
Mm.
might be averse to doing it. I think putting on pants, frankly, is a really good place to start.
Yeah.
I got rid of, especially because I started my business in 2019. And in the beginning, I did do some stuff in person. I
Mhm.
did a pitch in person. I went to an office and I pitched a local organization and they were a client, right? It went great. And I remember driving home on the freeway and calling my partner and being like, yes, that was so awesome. And this is just the beginning. I'm going to be in boardrooms all over the city and I'm going to be pitching my services. And then the pandemic happened and nobody was in boardrooms. Boardrooms
Mhm.
across the city were empty for a year plus,
Yeah.
right? Actually, that really pushed my business to quote unquote be online. I think I always considered my business online from the standpoint of it's an online delivery.
Hmm.
So there's nothing in person about my offer. It's all something you do remotely on your own. And then my team takes care of, well, at the time it was just me, right? But now I have a team
Yeah.
that we take care of our end completely remotely. Don't need to be together in person. Don't need to do any of that.
I love
So
remotes. Yeah.
I think I considered it an online business from that standpoint. But so at the time that I started my business, I did have a full wardrobe of clothes I wore to work because I had just stopped working. So that still made sense. But in COVID, and I mean, I hate kind of phrasing it that way, and I'm kind of mad at myself that I did because COVID still exists. But
Yeah.
in the quarantine years, I was not dressing business casually. I was
Nobody
dressing
was. We
in
stopped that.
athleisure, right?
Yeah.
Like
Look.
comfiest clothes. And I also became a lot more sedentary. I gained a significant amount of weight and I purged all of those clothes. I'm not wearing them. Now I have a thriving business that doesn't require me to wear them. And I can't go anywhere anyway. And they don't fit well. So let's just get
Yeah.
rid of them. And now my entire wardrobe has become comfy clothes. That is just true. And when I had a client in town and I was going to go meet up with them, having to get dressed for going to dinner with somebody I'd been working with for a year gave me so much anxiety. So, although we make a joke about putting
Mm.
on pants, no, for real, I hear you. And I want to echo that. That is a totally how to dress to go to these things is like a legitimate source of concern.
It is. It's and everything you said, it's very similar. I had a baby 2 weeks before the world shut down, so there was that piece of it. But then I had a little pandemic depression, gained a ton of weight, same thing, got rid of my clothes. Like I'm never gonna go out. Like I quit my job. I'm never doing that again. I'll never be in an office again. And here we are in the year 2024, and I am not in a comfortable place all the time where I think, oh, that looks great on me. But I'm trying to get back out there. And even
Totally.
now, I'm like, I just joined Stitch Fix. Okay. I don't have time I'm not a shopper. I didn't get that chip, but I don't have stuff to wear. So I am tongue in cheek about the pants thing, but it's a very real issue. And it does cause a lot of anxiety for
Yeah.
women, especially.
Yeah. And that's one thing. Okay. It's a double edged sword because in a gendered space, if you do identify as a woman and you're listening to this and you're not opposed to spending time in women's only spaces, on the one hand, we think women will judge what we wear more than anyone else. But in my experience, it is the place that I have so far found that I am safest to show up exactly as I am and to be judged and assessed and frankly liked just based on who I am and what I bring to the conversation or what I bring to the table, not how I'm dressed. Like I don't have to be dressed a certain way to be taken a certain way. Now I understand that those safe spaces are not safe for all people, and I'm in no way trying to say you should put yourself in a situation that doesn't feel welcoming or inclusive for you. And also different people are going to have different experiences, so you may have a totally different experience with a group of women. You may prefer some other group in your community, but maybe you just have to find the group where you feel like you can show up.
Yeah.
I went to a conference last week at the time that we're recording this, was several weeks ago at the time this comes out. But one of the questions a speaker posed was, where do you feel the most you in your business?
Mm-hmm.
And I think finding an in-person space that you can feel the most you is the important part here. So if you try an in-person space and it does feel awkward or insane or competitive or cutthroat or whatever, it doesn't feel like you, that's not the one. Right. There's so many opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Like find the ones where you can show up truly authentically as you, whatever that means for you.
I love that question. That's a great question, just
Yeah.
in general, too. Where do you feel the most you? And I have had both experiences. And so I hope that the people listening think, oh, I did just go to this networking event and it felt weird. Like that's okay. Don't give up because I was the same. I was in some networking for women groups that I was invited to, and it just was not my jam. And I got a little down about it because I'm like, oh, is this all there is? Like, is this what's out there now? But the truth was, I think I do better in more creative spaces with other creatives because I feel like we identify more with each other. We kind of have that the way we think is similar, and we're putting out creative services too. So I think that's just that's where I feel most comfortable. And then also, like you said, you when you find your people, I've been so lucky that this year I have connected with an agency local to where I live. And these people, my gosh, like they make me feel like me. And the way they celebrate each other and appreciate each other, it's like I really feel like I've found a unicorn, but you know the difference when it's something that just isn't gonna fit what feels good to you versus something that does. Like just keep looking because I know it can be discouraging if you end up in that first place and you're like, oh, it's kind of icky. I don't like it. Yeah, keep trying stuff. Cities have cool, especially if you're in a larger city. I'm in a smaller city, but there's just so many different unique opportunities to dip your toe in and see what
Mhm.
feels like you. I love that.
I think it's pretty surprising, even in a small town and I'm really speaking to the USA because that's what I know, but
Yeah.
even in like small town rural USA, which is where I grew up, small towns are built on the back of small businesses. There
Oh
is
yeah.
something. There is something. And if there's not, and you're in a small rural town, honestly, it'd be easy enough to start one because there are so many small business owners
Mm.
in a small town. Especially because in a small town, there's usually some kind of community board, community something, whether it's digital or in person. You can usually still hang a flyer at a grocery store type of thing, which in a big city, you probably like you can. And also, if you did, no one would pay any attention to it. Nobody good
True.
would pay any attention to it.
That's
Like it's
true.
not the thing. So I think all of this to say that no matter where you are, and again, I'm specifically speaking to the US because I just don't know what's available in other
Mhm.
countries or what the like cultural vibe is like
Right.
for creating networking groups. But I assume that anywhere there's business, there's networking. So I think you can definitely find something. And I think the other big thing is networking has such a gross stipulation. And when you're not in business for yourself, going in networking feels so pointless because it's like, what am I going to say about myself? What am I going to do? And I think for me, I liked the idea of networking events always because I've always been like a crazy little ambitious freak. But I think that networking events when I worked in quote unquote corporate roles were hard. It was hard to figure out what to say and how to put myself out there. When I'm representing my own business, It's easy. And honestly, when you introduce yourself and talk about what you do and how you do it, it's pretty much always received well, like from other
Right.
business owners, especially. It's, oh, wow, that's really cool. Like,
Yeah.
literally, no matter what. And that feels really good. So it encourages you to have a conversation. So, yeah, I think that's another. There's like such a cringe factor with the word networking. Like,
There is.
nobody wants to network. But honestly, it's just building relationships. And I think that one of the other pieces that you said, and I want to like touch on this before we kind of wrap up, is when you started your business, you really tapped into your existing network, and you already had that. And you mentioned something along the lines of not every a lot of people don't do that. And
Mhm.
I think that part of the reason why it really does feed into the same like kind of shame factor as like we make
Mhm.
investments we feel shitty about, which is we don't want people to know, people who know us to know that we're trying to build a business, because if it doesn't work, or well, especially because if it doesn't work, then we have to like publicly fail, which is scary.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
also, if we tell people, they're going to judge us, they're going to have thoughts about us, they're going to make assumptions about us. There are people who are watching what we do and expecting us to fail, and that feels bad to then give them something to watch. Like that, I think there's a lot of people who don't want to tell anyone, especially when they're
Mhm.
starting out. And I think, to be honest, for the most part, the exact opposite is true. Where, yes, there are probably people in your world or following you on from years ago or whatever on social media, but you don't need them. Fuck those guys. Like, there's a
Yeah.
lot of people who know you, have worked with you, have worked with your mother, whatever it is, like they watched you grow up, whatever, whoever, right? Right? Like any corner recess of your life, who genuinely want you to win and want you to succeed. And those are the people who are going to help you build your business, what no matter what stage of your business you're in, whether you're starting or you've been in business for years. When I still to this day get referrals from people I knew 15 years ago who
Mhm.
I haven't spoken to, but they're watching what I'm doing on social media. And I'll just have an email in my inbox saying, hey, I want to make this introduction, because that person genuinely just wants me to win, right? Like they
That's right.
genuinely just want to
Yeah.
support what I do. So I think that actually tapping into as much as possible, that's how I started too. And I still try to do this, which is tell everyone what you're doing,
Mhm.
because everybody either needs what you offer or they know someone who does.
That's right. And more, I think more people than not do want you to succeed and they will be cheering you on, even if they don't have a direct need for your services. I tell people all the time, I help them build their brand, but the piece that a lot of people don't factor in is visibility. And if you do all this work to create a brand and
Mm-hmm.
you don't tell anyone about it,
Right.
or you don't show up for it, how will they know? So literally, I sent out emails to old bosses, people I interviewed with that hit it off, but I didn't get the job. I went through my Gmail through years and years, and I'm like, hey, I'm going full time in my business this summer, and this is what I offer. If you or anyone would need this, I would be so thankful if you wanted to send it along. And it does take you have to find the courage, be brave, and it is hard. I remember when I first started, it wasn't those people that I was worried about watching me because I show up on social media pretty unapologetically, which is something that's generally come easy to me, but I've worked at it over many years. The people that I was worried about were my family members who I started a new Instagram account like for business and they all followed me there. And I was like, guys, no, like I don't want you here. But I felt them like hate watching me, like not really hate, but you know what I mean?
No,
Like
that's what you
judging,
think though.
you
That's
feel
what's going through
judged,
your
right?
head. Yeah.
And I just had to work through that. It's such a human emotion, but I just had to get to a place where I was at peace. They can watch if they want, but it's not for them. And and I still feel weird when I see aunts, uncles, cousins showing up there because I'm like, cool, I'm just going to talk about freebies and marketing funnels if that interests you. Great. But it does take practice to just get to a place where you're like, you know what? I will feel a little weird about this, but what if four people email me back and say, "Yeah, I know somebody who needs my services." Then it's worth it. It's worth it to let people know what you're doing for the
Yeah.
people who do want to support you.
Yes. And I think I did not start a separate I did not start a separate Instagram. That's like the main place that I first started. I just started posting about business. But honestly, like when I joined a sorority in college, I started posting about my sorority. When I graduated college, I posted about my graduation. Like starting a business is a big part of my life. And now running a business is what I do. I also will share snaps of my kids or whatever, but this is my life. This is what I do. This is inside my day. And so if it's not interesting to you, or if you feel like, oh, gross, another person going into business, well, then that's sad. But I guess then you can choose to unfollow. It's up to you. Or you
Right.
can hate watch. But I mean, it is what I'm doing.
There also is, oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't, I just
no,
had this
it's
thought.
okay. It's okay.
There's also this 1% of that could just be in your brain that they're hate watching. Maybe they're really not. And that's just something I need to work on.
They
And,
probably aren't. If
right?
they do, it's going to be very short-lived. It's less hate watching and more I'm nosy. I'm nosy about what this is. And yes, maybe with some judgment or some criticism, but that says more about what's going on with them than it does about what's going on with you. It's what they're
Right.
dealing with. And then honestly, that's not going to stick unless there's something about it that they actually are learning or engaged with, right?
Right.
They're processing whatever they're processing, and they're dealing with whatever they're dealing with. Even the people that we hate watch, because I've totally had people that I hate watch on. And by the way, if you're following people who you hate watch, unfollow. Okay,
Yeah.
that's something I'm going to say. Unfollow. I'm not telling you not to ever hate watch. We all do it, but you can still go find their account without following them, and you can
Yes.
just check in when you feel like being a little nosy. It's fine, but get them
Yeah.
out of your algorithm. Get them out of your face all the time. It's gonna be so much better for your mental health space.
So
Like,
much.
stop following people that make you feel like shit, period. You can
Mm.
still go watch them, but stop following them.
Bingo.
Stop
Bingo. I've
following
done a
them.
lot of that this year. I have done a lot of unfollowing and muting because I realized like this this is giving me great information to use for my podcast, but it's not great for my mental health because I think
Yes.
these people are that well, it's not serving me. So I got to stop.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. 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 And then that's part of the reason why you feel like some of the things that you're critical of in the online coaching space have gone away, because actually you've just you've
Yes.
saged your social media. So now you don't see it. I think that too. There's a lot of times that I feel like, oh, we've made so much progress on so many things. And then I realize actually, like, the large majority of users are still in that space. My algorithm has come a really long way because I've worked really hard to cultivate a network that's big, brave business oriented. And so we're having the conversations I want to have, but most people are not.
You've made the progress and own that and celebrate that because maybe
Yes.
the industry will follow, but you are making your progress and that's the most
Yes.
important thing.
Yes. I love this. Okay. I feel like we could talk all day, but for the sake of time, if you want to connect with Lindsay, whether you just want to hear her thoughts and criticisms of the online business industry and have more conversations like this, especially getting on her email list and getting her emails about it all because they're very good, then all of her information is going to be in the description of the episode, of course, as always. But I like to end all of these conversations with the same question, which is, and it can be work related, but it does not have to be, what is something that is making you happy right now?
Oh, I love that question. Oh, my business has come a long way. And the thing that's making me happiest out now, it really goes with the theme of what we've been talking about. It's people, it's the relationships I'm building outside of social where I feel like it just feels good. It just feels good to be in the presence of others and see people doing incredible things and cheering them on. And I've had the opportunity to be a part of some mentorship programs for small businesses in my community. And that's what's making me feel really happy. Just seeing their success, enthusiasm, determination. It's inspiration for me. I just feel grateful that I am in business still and meeting new people and meeting the right people.
Yeah, feeling really grateful I'm in business still too.
Yeah.
I love
Thank
that.
you.
Okay, so mine is going to be a little bit twofold. So we're recording this in October, and I recently did a bunch of travel for work in August and September, and I freaking loved it. Like, it was exhausting, but I loved it, and I totally want to do more.
Where'd you
So
go?
honestly, Vegas twice, and then
Oh,
like just northern Arizona. Not even a big travel, but I really loved it, the experience of it. And I'm like, yes, yes, universe, more please, right? Whatever version of that expression resonates with you. And I have some opportunities next year. I have some conferences that two conferences I already bought tickets to, and then some speaking opportunities that are nothing signed yet, but I hope they're going to work out for next year. And then just some things that like I've had business FOMO about that I've wanted to attend but have never done it. So this is my new big investment. Instead of investing 5 figures in coaching, we're investing 5 figures in travel next year. So I actually started laying it out of all the things that I would like to do next year. And it's not perfectly once a month, but it's like roughly once. It's a lot. It's a lot. And I'm excited, but I'm also like, oh, what's this going to cost? I have a friend who works in travel, and her first suggestion was like, go through and start building out a budget for each of these trips. And then you can prioritize which ones can be combined, which ones can be cut, which ones are your top priorities, and then we can try to find ways to save cost, but that's going to give you a picture. And simultaneously, I have just hired a fractional CFO. It's brand new at the time that we're recording this, and this is a whole other episode, and it will be, but I'm still living it right now. But the CFO side of the business is the part that makes me want to throw up. Honestly, it's still just like the hardest thing, but what perfect timing to be trying to look at how do I ensure that I can make a 5-figure investment in travel next year, and also all the rest of my profitability and like focusing on that. So that's kind of twofold. Although digging into that part of my business makes me want to throw up, I also know, to use your word again, it's going to actually make me feel very empowered about what I am doing. And I know it will, when we get through the hard part, it will eliminate any part of my business making me want to throw up. That's a good thing. So it's been the like elephant in the room that I won't make eye contact with for too long. Yes. So now we are just doing the damn thing, and I don't want to do it myself. So we're hiring, and a fractional CFO is a great way to do that. So I'm excited about it, and it's going to help me do all of this travel next year, which I'm like very excited about.
Yeah. Congratulations. That's huge and so exciting. When you were mentioning the things that you need to start a business, I was going to throw in an accountant, because I think most business owners, doesn't matter what your industry, that's a bit like, for most of us, many of us, that's a big uncomfortable space, for myself included. So I'll be picking your brain offline.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We can totally talk about it. And I would love to, in a future episode, to bring my fractional CFO on, and we can just talk about it. And we can talk about it. And here's spoiler alert, a little sneak peek. We can talk about the fact that when I hired her, our very first conversation was me going to her and saying, help. I need help. I just want to be really vulnerable with you. I need help. I need help. I know at this point, not that the business is making millions of dollars. It's not. I wish that were the case, and it will be eventually, but I'm making more money than I have ever made, and I am not equipped to be the one to manage it. I need help. We
need to hear more people saying that, because I think that we are conditioned to think I'm supposed to just know how to do this. No, of course not.
It's new.
Yeah.
And frankly, I want to get used to making more and more and more money, but I don't want to learn how to
you shouldn't have to be the expert
manage it.
Let somebody else do that when they love it and they're good at it, you know?
I want to make it, and I want to spend it.
I
don't want to do the rest of the management in between.
Here you go. Take it on my plate.
There you go. Like, just transparently, that is exactly how I feel about money. I want to make it, I want to spend it, I don't want to do the rest. So I need somebody else to do it. Hopefully
that's a great investment. That's a great investment right there. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you. And I'm glad we got to do this. We'll have to do it again. And I feel like we should already start trying to get it on the books, so that
I think we should. Yeah. Count me in.
Quarter one, we'll have Lindsay back again.
I would love that so much. Thank you so much for having me. It was worth the wait.
Oh, good. I think so too.